Have you ever held a warm cup of tea in your hands on a cold, rainy day? Have you felt that gentle heat spreading through your fingers? It is more than just a drink, isn't it? It feels like a hug in a cup. But my friends, have you ever stopped to wonder where this simple magic comes from? How did a few green leaves in a pot of water become the most popular drink in the world after water? It is a story that spans thousands of years. It is a story of kings and monks, of giant ships and secret ceremonies. Today, I want to invite you on a journey. We are going to travel across high mountains in China and through the foggy streets of London. We will see how one tiny leaf changed the world. We will explore how people on opposite sides of the planet found comfort in the same plant, but in very different ways. Think about it for a moment. Right now, millions of people are boiling water. Some are adding milk and sugar. Others are watching the leaves dance in a glass pot. Why do we love it so much? Is it the caffeine that wakes us up, or is it the peace that comes with every sip? In this story, we will find the answers. We will see how tea is not just about flavor, but about history and culture. It is a bridge between the past and the present. So, find a comfortable chair. Maybe make yourself a cup of your favorite tea. Let's begin our journey at the very beginning, in a land of legends and ancient mist. Are you ready? Let's go back 5,000 years to ancient China. Our story starts with a legend. Imagine a great emperor named Shen Nong. He lived nearly 5,000 years ago. People say he was a wise ruler and a lover of nature. He was also very careful about his health. One afternoon, the emperor was resting under a tree. He was boiling a pot of water to drink. Suddenly, a light wind began to blow. A few leaves from the tree above drifted down. They landed softly in his boiling water. The water began to change color. It turned a beautiful golden brown. The emperor noticed a wonderful, fresh smell in the air. He was curious, so he took a sip. He felt a strange sense of energy and peace. He had discovered tea. Of course, this is just a story, but it shows us how much the Chinese people respect this plant. In the beginning, tea was not a social drink. People used it as medicine. They believed it could clean the body and clear the mind. Ancient doctors used tea leaves to treat many things. They used it for tired eyes and for stomach pain. They even used it as a skin cream. For a long time, it was a secret kept by healers and holy men. As time passed, the Chinese people began to see tea differently. During the Tang dynasty, about 1,200 years ago, tea became an art. It was no longer just for medicine. It became a drink for the soul. Famous poets wrote about the beauty of tea. They described how it looked like liquid jade. Philosophers taught that drinking tea was a way to find balance. It was a way to connect with nature. In these early days, tea was prepared very differently than it is today. People ground the leaves into a fine green powder. They would whisk this powder into hot water until it became frothy. Can you imagine the bright green color? This was the birth of a tradition. Tea was becoming the heart of Chinese life. It was a symbol of hospitality and wisdom. But the little leaf was getting ready to travel. It was time for tea to see the rest of the world. Ideas are like seeds. They love to travel. From the high mountains of China, tea began to move across the borders. It followed the paths of monks and traders. One of the most important stops on this journey was Japan. About 1,000 years ago, Japanese monks visited China to study. They found that tea helped them stay awake during long hours of meditation. They loved the focus it gave them. When these monks returned home, they brought tea seeds with them. In Japan, tea grew into something very special. It wasn't just a drink, it became a spiritual path. The Japanese developed the way of tea. This is a very beautiful and slow ceremony. Imagine a tiny, quiet room. Every movement is careful. Every bowl is chosen for its beauty. This ceremony reminds people to be present in the moment. It teaches that even a simple act, like making tea, can be a form of art. Tea also travelled to other places. It went to Korea, where it was enjoyed in temples. It travelled to Vietnam and Tibet. In the high, cold mountains of Tibet, people needed energy. They began mixing tea with yak butter and salt. It was a thick, salty soup that kept them warm in the snow. Think about how amazing that is. One plant travelled to different lands and became something new in each one. In one country, it was a quiet meditation. In another, it was a salty meal. This shows us the true power of tea. It is flexible. It fits into the lives of the people who drink it. It adapts to the weather, the religion, and the soul of a nation. But while Asia was falling in love with tea, a new part of the world was about to discover it. Far across the ocean, Europe was waiting. For a long time, the people of Europe had no idea that tea existed. They drank water, wine, or beer. But in the 1600s, everything began to change. This was the age of discovery. Large wooden ships were sailing across the world to find spices and gold. The first Europeans to bring tea back were the Portuguese and the Dutch. Can you imagine the first time a European sailor tasted tea? He probably thought it was very strange. It was a hot, bitter water made from dried leaves from a mysterious land. At first, tea was very, very expensive. It had to travel thousands of miles on dangerous seas. Only the richest people could afford it. It was kept in small locked boxes called tea caddies. Only the lady of the house had the key. In those days, people didn't know much about how to make it. There is a funny story that some people boiled the leaves, threw away the water, and tried to eat the leaves with butter. They had to learn the secret of the liquid. But soon the word spread. Doctors in Europe started saying that tea was good for the health. They said it could cure headaches and even bad moods. People in high society started to host tea parties. It became a way to show that you were wealthy and travelled. But there was one country that would change the history of tea forever. A country that was about to make tea its national identity. That country was Britain. At this time, Britain was just starting to build a global empire. They saw the profit in tea. And soon they would find a way to make tea available to everyone, not just the rich. Have you ever wondered why the British love tea so much? It all started with a marriage and a company. Let's look at how Britain fell in love. The British love story with tea truly began with a queen. In 1662, a princess from Portugal named Catherine of Braganza married King Charles II of England. She was a huge fan of tea. She brought a large chest of tea as part of her wedding gift. Because the Queen drank tea, every lady in the royal court wanted to drink tea too. It became the most fashionable thing to do. If the Queen did it, it must be wonderful. But how did it go from the palace to the regular streets? The answer is a very famous and powerful group called the East India Company. This was a massive trading company. They had their own ships and even their own army. The East India Company started bringing huge amounts of tea from China. As they brought more tea, the price started to go down. Now, businessmen, lawyers, and shopkeepers could buy it. However, there was a problem. The British government put a very high tax on tea. It was so expensive because of the tax that people started smuggling it. They would hide tea in secret basements and bring it into the country at night on small boats. For a while, more illegal tea was sold in Britain than legal tea. Eventually, the government realized their mistake. They lowered the tax, and tea became affordable for almost everyone. By the 1700s, tea gardens started appearing in London. These were beautiful outdoor parks where men and women could walk, listen to music, and drink tea together. It was a very social event, but it wasn't just about fun. Tea actually helped the British people during the Industrial Revolution. Before tea, many people drank weak beer all day because the water was not safe to drink. But to make tea, you have to boil the water. Boiling the water killed the germs. So tea made the workers healthier and more alert. It became the fuel of the British Empire. Factories and offices ran on tea. But the British didn't just drink tea. They created a whole world around it. If you think of Britain, you probably think of afternoon tea. But did you know this tradition started because of a hungry duchess? In the early 1800s, people in Britain usually only ate 2 meals a day. One lady, the Duchess of Bedford, found that she got a sinking feeling in her stomach around 4 p.m. She started asking her servants to bring her a tray of tea and some small snacks. She invited her friends to join her. They loved it. Soon, everyone in high society was having tea, tiny sandwiches, and cakes in the afternoon. This became a beautiful ritual. It was a time to pause, to talk, and to relax. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the tea set. People used beautiful porcelain cups, silver spoons, and white tablecloths. It was a moment of elegance in the middle of a busy day. But tea also became a part of the working class life. For a factory worker, a cup of strong black tea with lots of sugar and milk was a cheap way to get energy. This is what they called high tea. Unlike the fancy afternoon tea, high tea was a real meal. It was served at a high table with meat, bread, and cheese. This is where the British style of tea really became unique. The British started adding milk and sugar. Why? Because the tea they were getting from India and Sri Lanka was very strong and dark. The milk made it smoother, and the sugar made it sweet. Think about the tea break. Even today, in British offices and construction sites, everything stops for a cuppa. It is a moment of equality. The boss and the worker both hold the same warm mug. The British also became famous for their stiff upper lip, the idea of staying calm in a crisis. And what is the first thing a British person does in a crisis? They put the kettle on. Whether it is a celebration or a sad moment, tea is the answer. It is the social fabric of the nation. But while the British were adding milk and sugar, the Chinese were keeping a very different tradition alive. While the British see tea as a social break, the Chinese see it as a deep connection to the earth and the self. In China, tea is one of the 7 necessities of life, along with rice and oil. But it is also an art form. To understand Chinese tea, we must look at Gong Fu Cha. This doesn't mean kung fu like the martial arts. Gong Fu actually means making something with great skill and effort. In a Gong Fu ceremony, the tea maker is like an artist. They use a very small clay teapot and tiny cups. They wash the leaves first to wake them up. They pour the water from a height to add oxygen. They focus on every detail. The temperature of the water, the smell of the steam, and the color of the leaves. The goal is not to fill your stomach. The goal is to appreciate the tea. You take small sips. You notice how the flavor changes after the second or third time you pour water over the same leaves. In China, there are hundreds of types of tea. There is green tea, which is fresh and grassy. There is oolong, which can smell like flowers or fruit. There is pu'er, which is aged for years and tastes like the deep, rich earth. For the Chinese, tea is deeply connected to philosophy, especially Taoism and Buddhism. It is about wu wei, or the idea of flowing with nature. When you drink tea, you are supposed to forget your worries. You are supposed to become quiet and still. In a Chinese tea house, you will not see much milk or sugar. Why? Because they want to taste the soul of the leaf. They believe that adding milk hides the natural beauty of the plant. It would be like painting over a beautiful piece of wood. Tea is also a sign of respect. When young people meet their elders, they serve them tea. At a wedding, the bride and groom serve tea to their parents. It is a way to show honor. So we have two very different worlds. One is a busy social ritual with milk and cakes. The other is a quiet, spiritual ceremony focused on the pure leaf. Both are beautiful, but they tell us different things about the people who drink them. Let's look at these two worlds side by side. It is fascinating, isn't it? One tiny leaf, but two completely different stories. Think of it like two different languages speaking the same truth. First, let's look at the setting. In Britain, tea is often the background for something else. It is the background for a conversation, for a business meeting, or for a snack. It is social tea. In China, especially in a ceremony, tea is the event. It is meditative tea. Now, think about the preparation. The British usually use black tea. These are leaves that have been fully fermented, making them strong and dark. They often use tea bags for convenience. The Chinese often prefer green or oolong tea. They want to see the leaves open up in the water. They want to see the dance of the leaves. What about flavour? For a British person, a perfect cup of tea is often dark, hot, and creamy. The milk and sugar are essential parts. For a Chinese tea lover, the perfect cup is pure. They look for huigan, which is a sweet aftertaste that comes naturally. They want to taste the mountain air and the rain that grew the plant. The philosophy is different too. In Britain, tea represents home and stability. It is a warm blanket for the mind. In China, tea represents harmony and nature. It is a window into the natural world. But my friends, even with these differences, there is a very strong connection. In both cultures, tea is an act of sharing. You drink it to find peace with yourself, or to find a connection with a friend. In both cultures, tea is a way to slow down. In a fast world, the kettle still takes time to boil. You cannot rush a good cup of tea. Whether you are in a high-rise apartment in Shanghai or a small cottage in the English countryside, the message is the same. Stop. Breathe. Enjoy this moment. Two worlds, one leaf. Different traditions, but the same human need for a moment of calm. Today, tea is more than just a tradition in China or Britain. It belongs to the whole world. It is a global language. In Morocco, people drink sweet mint tea from beautiful glasses. In India, people drink chai, tea mixed with spices like ginger, cardamom, and cinnamon. In the United States, many people love iced tea with lemon on a hot summer day. In Taiwan, they invented bubble tea with chewy pearls, which is now popular everywhere. Tea continues to evolve. Scientists are finding more and more reasons why it is good for us. They tell us about antioxidants and how tea helps our hearts and our brains. But we don't need scientists to tell us what we already feel. We know that tea makes us feel better. Think about the journey this plant has taken from a legendary emperor's pot 5,000 years ago to the holds of massive sailing ships, to the royal palaces of Europe, and finally to your kitchen. Every time you take a sip of tea, you are part of that history. You are connected to the monks in Japan, the Duchess in England, and the farmers. You are holding a piece of the world in your hands. So, my friends, next time you drink a cup of tea, I want you to do something. Don't just drink it quickly. Look at the colour, smell the steam, feel the warmth. Remember the story of the tiny leaf that travelled the world just to be with you. We live in a very busy world. We are always running. But tea is a reminder that we can always find a moment of peace. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of tea. I hope it has made your next cup taste just a little bit sweeter. What about you? How do you like your tea? Do you like it pure and simple, or with milk and sugar? Whoever you are, and however you drink it, I wish you a peaceful and happy tea time.